But our Democrat of the day is the Speaker of the Minnesota House, representing 36B. Representative Melissa Hortman is kind enough to join us. Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well.
I hope you're doing well. I called up your office to get you on the air after that story in the Reformer about, and I'm sorry, I've just gotten so used to this with the Republicans especially and how they come to negotiations. The somewhat double cross you had in regards to frontline worker compensation as well as the help repaying the unemployment benefits. It was disappointing to see the Senate Majority Leader Miller basically kind of make up reality and argue that they wanted to split those two things apart. And clearly it did not make you happy.
Well, it was really frustrating because on June 23rd, 2021, the Senate Republicans said, we agree with you, House Democrats. We're signing an agreement. We agree we are going to give $250 million to frontline workers. And that was part of a budget deal where we made concessions to them and they made concessions to us. Well, along about January, we start trying to talk about how we're going to get this session rolling. And my presumption is that we are starting at $250 million for frontline workers. And as we negotiate deals for this session, that we're going up from there to get things done. And they let me know that they intended to walk away from the agreement that they already made with us to give money to frontline workers. And I was having none of it. I left the meeting. I staged an Iron Ranger walkout.
Well, this is one of the reasons I love you as Speaker, because you did exactly the right thing, and I imagine they were fairly stunned. But it was Miller making the argument, oh, that deal was only good until, what was it, the end of September 6th or something like that. And it was kind of one of those things that was so just dishonest and disingenuous. And reminder, too, the frontline workers, the Republicans were the ones back in 2020 demanding all these people pre-vaccine get to the work, go and do their jobs. Sure, there was banners and stuff, but we should be thanking all the frontline workers who kept this country going through the early days of this pandemic.
Right, and I think we heard from the frontline workers is don't call us heroes. Pay us what we're worth.
Yeah.
And Democrats said, yes, we happy to oblige, and we had to drag Republicans kicking and screaming to an agreement, which they then tried to renege upon.
You recently, since that time, it does sound like there has been some concession that something to the effect of they're willing to make it $250 million and that the House Democrats can make the decision on how that money is spent. What was your thoughts on that aspect of the negotiations?
Well, it was a totally inadequate offer because what they're trying to get us to agree to is to provide $2.7 billion in business subsidies that primarily reward large corporations that are doing very well who happen to have a lot of employees. And what we have contended is that small businesses or those who struggled during the pandemic should be the first businesses that we're thinking about if we're thinking about subsidies. We don't think that Target, for example, needs an $11.3 million tax cut or that Amazon needs a $2.5 million tax cut. We think that, the local barbershop or the local restaurant needs some direct financial assistance.
Well, and it's a standard Republican policy here. And the Democrats have to give us $2.7 billion, but we'll give you $250 million and we'll call that fair. And it just is. It is. I mean, the negotiating. I've saw this with Kurt Doubt when he was Speaker. I've seen this before numerous times. They really, this game is so old, especially when, I think the entire Democratic leadership in the House has got their eyes wide open and is waiting for the next shoe to drop when it comes to these guys.
Well, that's the thing. When you have divided government, in order to get something done, there has to be give and take. And that means I have to do some things that Republicans like, and Republicans have to do some things that Democrats like in order for us to make progress. We agreed to some tax cuts that Republicans were pursuing in the last budget to get some ongoing education funding. And those are the kind of deals that you have to be willing to make. And what we've gotten so far this year is just a willingness to engage in gridlock of like, well, hey, Democrats, you have to do things exactly the way Republicans want them or we're not doing anything at all. And that is not what Minnesotans expect out of their government.
No, it's not. And is it something that you're kind of anticipating? Okay, it's going to be the last few days of session, and once again, then they'll get serious. That right now, all they're doing is they're prancing and preening in front of the cameras, and then but when it comes time, there are some things they want to get passed, and so they will come to the table with honesty, at least some level of honesty at that point. Is that what you're anticipating, or are they just going to be political and that's just they'll walk away and basically hope things go their way in November?
Yeah, I'm not anticipating that they will for sure come to the table. I have sort of a process and a substance response to your question. I mean, on the process, Minnesotans always say, like, why do the people at the legislature behave like college students or, high school students waiting for that deadline, and then they're cramming and they're pulling all-nighters? It doesn't have to be that way. The only reason we end up in that situation at the end of session is when people refuse to make deals early on. We know what the outlines are right now of each other's positions. There's no reason to dilly-dally. We can make compromises. We can get things done. It's just pure stubbornness on the part of Republicans right now preventing productivity. On the substance, I'll tell you that we are deeply committed to the frontline workers. There are 667,000 workers who had to go to work every day, put their families at risk. And Democrats are very serious about putting money in their pockets. And I think what the Republicans believe is that we don't really care that much, and that somehow we're going to fold, and we feel some pressure to do this $2.7 billion worth of tax cuts for very successful businesses. And so I don't think, believe that they need to compromise at all. And I'll tell you that we are 100% committed to the workers. We are not doing anything for businesses until we take care of the workers.
One of the things I like about your style is I love how you hold them to what they're going to do. You save the bill they really want to get passed to the very end and say, okay, when the rest of the stuff passes, then we'll pass that one. I do like how you hold them in check. Speaker of the Minnesota House, Melissa Hortman, kind enough to join us today. Madam Speaker, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the House. Let's talk about some of the bills that have been coming through so far, been proposed, that are being debated right now. The public safety bill obviously is a big one that a lot of people are paying attention to.
Well, absolutely. Since COVID-19 and the murder of George Floyd, across the country and even actually across the world, there has been a spike in crime. And I think part of it is a lot of the economic and mental health stressors that people have experienced during COVID-19. And then you layer on top of that the murder of George Floyd and sort of the racial reckoning and reaching kind of a low point with public, certain community trust in certain law enforcement operations. And so we have to do something about the present increase in crime, and particularly violent crime. But we also have to do something about longer-term investments in community safety, because people who have great economic opportunities, great housing, and great education, we don't have to worry about getting tangled up in the criminal justice system. So the Representative Frederick Frazier bill, that is the caucus bill on public safety, invests in both fighting crime right now and then preventing crime over the long term by investing in community.
I want to bring up another bill that's being talked about, and I've had Representative Rick Hansen on a lot, Jamie Becker-Finn as well. And I'm making this a bigger issue because I think this is actually starting to become a real big issue, and it's going to be a big problem. The chronic wasting disease issue within the deer populations. The Democrats in the House have been leading the charge, trying to say, okay, this is a real big problem. And the Republicans in the Senate have been pushing back on it. Let's talk a little bit about that, because although this might not be, you and I talk about the sausage making that's here, this is not the glitzy glamour bill, but the impact, if all of a sudden we have to shut down hunting season in Minnesota because we have a disease that's out of control within our deer populations, that's going to hurt a lot of people.
Well, and it's not just a deer hunt. The prospect of harm to humans is what's the really scary thing out there. So, yeah, both from the standpoint of Minnesotans' long tradition of being a state that's engaged in hunting and fishing, and also the public health concerns that, there's some concerning data out there, and we don't exactly know where CWD is headed. But I think Representative Hansen and Representative Becker-Finn are fully immersed in that topic, and I generally just stand back and wait for them to make deals.
Oh, you got the good team there. And this is another thing I really like about your leadership style. You're you brought up Representative Fraser. You're bringing in the best people to be the point people on bills and issues because they absolutely are hitting it out of the park there. And that's it. Looks from the top down. You got a great leadership team there.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because at a point or two in my career, I've seen those leaders who are very focused on the public attention being reflected back on themselves. And they, look at the position that they're in as a stepping stone to the next thing. And I tend to be a kind of a leader who is about highlighting all the members of the team and making sure every single member of our team has an opportunity to shine in their particular area with their particular passions. So, the more I'm in the background, the happier I am. I'm not one of those people who looks for a lot of ego food in this. That's
great leadership. Knowing when you don't need to be out there and basically letting the other players shine. That's for sure. One other final issue on policy I want to ask you before I want to get to your campaign here coming up in fall. But the jobs. I mean, obviously jobs are such a big issue. We're talking about this with the teachers, which the strike looks like that's been settled. We've got we've had a real reckoning in the last year in regards to the fact that people are just tired of wages and benefits not keeping up, as well as also the safety requirements we have in a world with COVID not being there. And it's been really kind of a monumental shift in the workforce. Talk a little bit about how the House Democrats are looking at addressing this and helping, make sure that people are getting paid what they are worth, as well as also getting the benefits they deserve.
Yeah, I think COVID-19 really put a spotlight on how important worker safety is, and employees need to have paid time off to take care of themselves or their family members, because it's not just an economic issue for a family, but it's really a public health issue as well. And it's pretty embarrassing that the United States of America is the only industrialized country in the world that does not have paid family medical leave. So we are working as hard as we can to try to secure earned safe and sick time for employees and paid family medical leave, in addition to some really important safety provisions in the workplace. Representative Emma Greenman has a bill up on Monday about, we call it the Amazon Worker Safety Bill, but it applies to those in jobs like the ones at Amazon as well as just at Amazon. And we have workers really front and center in our items of concern.
Your district, how much did it change with the redistricting?
Well, it didn't change that much. I mean, I swapped some parts of Brooklyn Park for some other parts of Brooklyn Park, but
okay.
the parts that I picked up, I represented for 10 years in the past. And then I swapped some parts of Coon Rapids for other parts of Coon Rapids, and the parts of Coon Rapids that I got, I also represented for about 10 years. So there's very little of my district that's entirely new. I got a little piece of Champlin that I've never had before.
Champlin's delightful. You'll enjoy having Champlin in there. The map, I'm not going to, hey, we have to campaign. You have to work. It's not a bad, that redistricting map, when you look at the Minnesota House, it's not a bad map. It's the metro area's got quite a few safe seats. The way things are developed in Rochester, Duluth, St. Cloud, Moorhead, there is a really good chance that the Democrats can do well coming up in November.
Well, absolutely. We have 77 seats where Joe Biden won, and then we have a series of seats beyond that where we have very strong incumbents that beat the Biden numbers quite considerably. And then we have some districts where they're trending our way. So you look at out in the western suburbs, where Biden didn't win and our candidate didn't win last time, but the trends are each election cycle, they're coming towards us by a couple percent, and now they're definitely within shooting distance. So I feel very good about this map. You know, before redistricting came out, I was pretty confident that the map would be good to us. And when the map first came out, I panicked looking at these lines. They're all different, trying to digest the whole thing. But the more I look at this map, the more I like this map.
I agree with you. We laughed at the Republican suggestions, but they went with a much more sensible, hey, guess what? The population's here. We need to actually make sure the representation there is equal throughout the state. They're good maps. I really want to encourage everyone. We need to keep Melissa Hortman as the Speaker of the Minnesota House. Your campaign website is melissahortman.com, correct?
That's right.
melissahortman.com. Help keep the Speaker in the Minnesota House and in the majority, because, my God, she's the leadership we need in this state today. Madam Speaker, as always, an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon and great weekend.
Thank you very much. Speaker Melissa Hortman is Democrat of the Day. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.